I'm Kristi. I'm a sustainability consultant at the City of Calgary, and my role is managing the implementation of Calgary's food strategy.
And I'm Kathryn. I'll be co-presenting with Kristi, and I work for the City of Edmonton. I'm a principal planner, and I work on the implementation of our food strategy, which is called FRESH. And I also I support a citizen advisory committee called the Edmonton Food Council.
So today, we're going to quickly overview urban planning and food systems and how they fit together. We're going to talk about resilient food cities and some planning tools that Edmonton and Calgary use. And then we'll dig into the land use bylaw and urban agriculture and some work that's happening in both Calgary and Edmonton. And then we'll quickly touch on the deliberate planning of future cities that is starting to emerge, and that I think will be a nice segue into Bela's presentation. So memorize this slide real quick. I like this slide. I know you can't see it very well, but I use it because it really illustrates the complexity of the global food system and all of the interconnections and cascading effect that one area has on another. Municipal food planning is not new. It's been around for nearly 20 years. Was led in Canada by Toronto. The City of Toronto started into municipal food planning in the late 90s. And now we have a thriving transdisciplinary research and policy field that brings together practitioners, academics, policymakers, and other smart people. And it surfaces now, we're seeing across Canada a number of cities that have developed urban food strategies, urban food policy. Food policy councils are appearing, citizen-led and government-led. And we're also seeing out in the community alternative food networks in the form of urban and local food production and new ways of selling food in the city. So planning for sustainable food production and provision is more than ever urging us to look for effective and equitable approaches that will change not only the way we grow and share food, but also how cities incorporate food into daily life. Both Edmonton and Calgary have experienced rapid urban growth over the last 20 years, and this brings socioeconomic inequality and environmental impacts. And cities are recognizing the role of a resilient and sustainable food system in maximizing health and well-being, increasing prosperity and equity, and conserving and enhancing natural resources. Over 83% of Alberta's population lives in cities, and this creates socioeconomic and spatial characteristics that are unique for our food supply. Alberta has a thriving farming and ag sector, and yet Calgary and Edmonton rely heavily on global imported food, which leaves us vulnerable to stressors such as climate, food price volatility. We saw this in January of 2016 with the $10 cauliflower that was in the news, and also earlier this spring in April, I think some of you may remember we were paying $5 for a head of romaine lettuce, and that was all linked back to what was happening in California. So faced with growing urban populations and increased demand for food, short growing seasons, climate events, Alberta's export-oriented ag sector, we do have a need to plan for how much food our cities will require with future growth in mind and disaster events. So the challenge of feeding cities consists in facilitating access to food by consumers, but also creating favorable conditions to ensure that the investments needed to increase food production and distribution exist, and that's where the resilience piece comes in. Every city has a unique food system and unique food system vulnerabilities, And an assessment of the entire food system is needed to inform resilience plans.
So as food systems planners, we believe, and we're lucky enough to work in cities that believe that food systems is an important lens to bring to our work, whether it's as city staff, as planners, in the private or public sectors. So this figure is it's from FRESH, Edmonton's Food and Urban Agriculture Strategy, and just to illustrate the ways that we might see urban agriculture activities as dispersed across our city spatially, from the types of activities that it might occur in the urban core, to residential and suburban neighborhoods, to the peri-urban, and the rural lands surrounding our cities. It's really important to think about connectivity across both spatial scales and policies. Food is really everywhere. So urban planning has a really important role to play. As I think one of the other presenters I was at talked about how cities are really kind of the linchpins of implementing policy from other levels of government as well. And whether it's about urban landform, land management, infrastructure, access to energy and water, the access to public spaces for small producers and vendors and retailers, or delivering on ecosystem services, urban agriculture links into all of our city systems. It's also really important for us to think about food as a human right. I would say that the paradigm that we operate within right now, we think of food as a commodity, as a market good, as something that fills retail space. And I think we need to shift this if we're to reorient our planning work around food as one of our basic human rights and physical and social needs. I just wanted to mention too, when we think about ourselves as connected spatially, it's not just the city that we're serving. As an example, last year when there were the fires in Fort Mac, Edmonton's food bank was helping feed the evacuees at the same time that they were responding to the influx of Syrian families, at the same time that they were responding to Edmontonians who were newly food insecure because of the recession. So we're not actually we're pretty vulnerable. The fact that we have one food bank serving northern Alberta really is not a good place for us to be. And this is just a diagram as well. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with thinking about food as a system. In case you're not, this is just a kind of a quick summary. Basically just thinking about from the production of food and the whole cycle through to the waste. So from the production to the processing to the sharing and celebrating to the sale. And then within that, we need to think about education and governance.
Calgary recently joined Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal in building a resiliency strategy through the Rockefeller Foundation. So me, with my food lens, I think, well, what does that mean for our food system? What does a resilient food city look like? Well, it means more home, neighborhood, urban, and regional food production and more small-scale producers alongside more large-scale producers, and more food pathways and commercial food system infrastructure to get our food to markets. And this includes regional supply chains. In Alberta, it's easier for farmers to produce grains and oilseeds and put them on a rail car to the Port of Vancouver than it is to bring their potatoes into the city of Calgary and retail them. So diversifying the food distribution system can make the city less vulnerable to disruption while also reducing adverse impacts such as heavy transport emissions. But diversification, as I said, should also emphasize local food production and also alternative forms of retail like cooperatives and farmers markets that build community-based social networks, increase social cohesion, etc. Backyard household and small-scale food production in cities also generate a number of other benefits, including an opportunity for education and to increase awareness of how to grow food.
Okay, and just in connecting this conversation to resilience and resiliency, we just wanted to point out that both Edmonton and Calgary, in our food strategies, we do make those linkages, and that conversation about food as related to resilience comes up. So our strategy was approved by Council in 2012, but even in the development of the food strategy, we had an advisory committee that worked on it, and these were some of the fundamental questions that came up for them in relation to resiliency. So just to give you an example of some of I think these questions are things that we are still grappling with and we'll continue to grapple with. And I also wanted to mention that, again, in our strategy, we talk about urban agriculture as helping to provide resilience in the event of food supply chain interruptions, as Kristi talked about earlier, but also to help address food-related health and access issues and increase community participation in the food system. So urban agriculture is not just about we won't feed ourselves with our urban ag systems, but it's a way to bridge the link of understanding between urban and rural consumers to reconnect urban dwellers with where their food comes from, and also to think about how within our cities, depending where you live geographically or your socioeconomic situation, you have different kinds of access to healthy, fresh, culturally appropriate, affordable food. So we wanted to co-present because we find that there's quite a lot of parallels between Edmonton and Calgary, and we have very similar planning tools that we've been utilizing for integrating urban agriculture into our cities. So we both have content within our municipal development plans about food and agricultural systems, and that mandated us as a city to come up with a standalone food and urban agriculture strategy, which is fresh. Calgary has Calgary Eats. And then both of us now are working with using our land use bylaw as a tool to integrate content again around how we can get urban agriculture uses normalized within our cities again. And both of our strategies also use the word resilient.
Increasingly complex systems of regulations that operate in cities, especially those related to land use plannings, are often barriers to attempts to grow new forms of urban agriculture and new models. For example, in Calgary right now, we have a number of entrepreneurs that are interested in aquaponics and aquaculture, aeroponics, indoor modular farming, among other things, and our land use bylaw, we're struggling with the approvals process because our land use bylaw doesn't accommodate these models of growing in many of our industrial districts and commercial districts for that matter. So over the past year, we've been reviewing Calgary's food-related land use bylaws to find as many opportunities as possible to increase opportunities for production and processing and distribution of local food. And part of this project has involved research and conversations with stakeholders to learn more about these emerging models of urban food production and to ensure that they're accommodated in the land use bylaw. This is formative work that will support urban agribusiness at every level of the food system, and this will build resilience through a new layered approach that includes local food, regional food, and the global food system.
And yeah, as we're doing the same thing in Edmonton, just a few more thoughts. I guess maybe one thing just to say, it occurred to me, maybe there's some confusion. We're not just talking about growing food on your front lawn or community gardens and parks. That has already been, people have been growing food forever. And even in Edmonton, our community gardens program is decades old, or several decades old. But we're talking about changing to allow commercial urban agriculture, for example, so small-scale urban agriculture on underutilized lands within the city. So that is a very old thing, but also a new thing. So we've kind of, that picture on the top right is one of the early settlement days of Edmonton, when Edmonton agriculture was used to draw settlers to the prairies. It was part of the whole colonization experiment, was come, grow food here, there's land, great climate, you can grow anything. So, this is not a new thing. But over time, we kind of evolved away from seeing agriculture is something that coexists with us in an urban environment, and we started to see it as, okay, this is something separate. Cities are clean, and we don't have country bumpkins bringing their market goods into our city center. So we need to now go to our land use bylaws to rejig those relationships. And so some of the lessons learned, even that we've changed our zoning bylaw in Edmonton to add 3 urban agriculture land use classes for urban indoor farming, urban outdoor farming, and for urban gardens. But I think the next steps now, or some of the lessons we've seen are that even though we've changed our zoning bylaw, we haven't had a whole lot of uptake because not a lot of people know how to farm in the city, or they don't. We didn't do a great job of promoting, having educational materials, doing engagement around this opportunity. So I think those are some of the things we need to look at going forward. And also, there's a real pressing need to grow more farmers in our country. We need more young farmers, and when you have young urban dwellers wanting to get into farming, there's not a lot of places for them to get training and skills, as most of our agricultural programs are geared towards large-scale rural producers. And just some thoughts to leave you with, just that food is everywhere, and Kristi and I just did a little quick brainstorm of some of the different Edmonton and Calgary plans or policies that integrate food, or where we could integrate food. So I think the green ones are the ones we thought, okay, or have mention of food and food systems. Purple are some of the places we thought we could insert food a little better. But just to say that something for all of you to think about as you go back to your home cities and communities is, how does your role that you do every day, where can you bring a little bit of food systems thinking into what you do? I mean, we are both one person at the City of Edmonton, one person at the City of Calgary, I think one person at the City of Victoria, who are food systems planners at cities of 12,000, 15,000 people. So, we could build bigger teams. We could also have more of our staff put this food systems lens on the work that we do and just bring it to your work, whether you're a drainage planner or transportation planner or a housing planner. What are the linkages between your work and supporting urban agriculture and resiliency? And so just to close and hand it off to Bela, we just wanted to say that, making these linkages across policy areas is really important for resiliency. And also spatially, we need to make these linkages. We need to integrate and embed food within our urban landscape more. And Bela's going to give us a great example of how that's underway in Calgary. So thank you.